Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Iron and today we are talking about synthesis, and this is going to be a discussion video where we love to hear all of your feedback and where we discuss what people are discussing. So of course you can give us a like and subscribe and hit the bell to be notified for more videos just like this one. And you can also drop a comment down below to let us know what you've been chatting about with your own friends, with your guildies, on the forums, on Reddit, and of course right here in the G3 community. What has been on your mind and been your own experience so far 1 week into Synthensis League. Today we've got several different things to chat about. You can see the fresh... Is that what the kids use nowadays, or is that like 2 decades old? Anyway, the lit, is that what the kids are using? the memes, the modes of communication which we choose today to best describe things as we experience Synthensis League. And there are lots of them going around, whether that's Bad Luck Brian starting to play Path of Exile during Synthensis League, and they're just confused and not sure what exactly is going on, whether or not they are angry and upset because Synthesis isn't like what it used to be when a new league got launched. So we're going to be covering all of this, and of course if you'd like to jump around to a specific timestamp, those will be provided down in the video description below. And the timestamps themselves are provided directly above my slightly balding head. So today we're taking a look at different people's opinions and feedback and thoughts so far 1 week through Synthensis League. It's been out for a little over a week now, and there's been a lot of discussion, and the discussion has primarily been around two things that I've noticed so far. So first off, the discussion has revolved around the implementation of Syndicate from Betrayal going core. That's the first point. And then the second point has been, of course, the actual league mechanics of Synthesis itself. So today we're going to chat about this. We're going to look at a couple of different discussion threads, both on Reddit as well as on the forums, about some different feelings and opinions that have generated some discussion and maybe some pushback. So let's jump right in. So this particular user, King Jia, and of course you can check out all of the links down below in the video description if you'd like to read any of these links, says the game is becoming more and more cluttered with old league content, which is becoming a bit problematic because we get a jack-of-all-trades scenario where you get a bit of each, but not enough to double down and target farm what you personally enjoy the most or get any meaningful rewards in most cases. Betrayal had, what I think, a great solution to the problem via Scarabs. Enjoy Breach, get Breach Scarabs, and Breach as much as you like. Enjoy Bestiary, focus on those uNrEwArDiNG Scarabs, and fill your menagerie. Outside of some balance issues, Delve Scarabs were too good. Now they're fine. I think Scarabs are a beautiful tool to have the main game not be cluttered with all kinds of league mechanics, but let people customize their gameplay in a way they personally prefer. Now that Betrayal is super rare, I really notice how much I miss Scarabs, and I think they should be added to the core game at a reasonable rate. This is definitely something that I second as a theory. I think Scarabs are really awesome in their design. What Scarabs essentially allow us to do, as this particular user points out so effectively, is they allow us to choose our own adventure as we are playing out the mid to end game of Path of Exile. It's awesome the way how these different league mechanics are now introduced through the story. It's really great that we meet uNrEwArDiNG in Act 2 as we're capturing beasts. It's awesome that we bump into Nico in the mines in Act 4. I even enjoy bumping into Jun, even though her encounters are really, really scary. I enjoy bumping into Jun in Act 9. These are some really cool ways to introduce different league mechanics, and it's not foreign from the PoE template and from the previous PoE expansions and leagues that have been used previously, whether that's the lab, and how the lab gets added in at basically Act 3 is where you can actually perform the lab, but of course you've got to interact with the Trials of Ascendancy before that. Or of course Jun and how you can, Alva, and how you can bump into her and begin your Temple of Atsuatl incursions. Like, these are really, really cool, targetable, relatively well thought out and well rolled out. In fact, I don't even want to say relatively. I want to say incredibly well rolled out and well thought out, planned encounters that come along as you experience the story and are introduced. So from a new player perspective, it's great. And even from a veteran player perspective, as somebody that's got thousands of hours in Path of Exile, I really enjoy that not everything hits me right away in Act 1, or not everything hits me in Act 2, or not everything hits me in Act 3. I enjoy that different components and different mechanics are introduced to us, different masters, as well as their various side areas, side quests, and additional mods and modifications and mechanics are rolled out throughout the story. So I think that's great. And what Scarabs allow us to do is then interact with all of the masters, all of their greatness, all of the side areas, and really target farm exactly what we would like to do with it. So I think this is a great idea for Scarabs. But right now, of course, because of the rarity of Syndicate encounters, of Betrayal encounters, it's kind of a bummer. If you'd like to actually target farm Scarabs, they're going to be incredibly rare, and then once you actually get Scarabs, they've of course been nerfed, and deservedly so. We've covered this over the last really 2.5 weeks since patch notes and the dev manifesto has been out, as we've been talking about the nerfs to Scarabs. Deservedly so, because Scarabs were incredibly powerful, probably too much so during Betrayal League. So it's great that they've been nerfed in their numbers for their individual power level, but then they've not only been nerfed in their power level individually, but then they've also been nerfed in their drop rate and ability to acquire rate because of the way how Syndicate functions now. So it's really kind of a bummer that one of the more cool aspects of PoE as a total, as PoE as a game-wide experience, to be able to target farm specific different encounters and types of way to play the game, all of that has been nerfed and kind of shuffled in, where you're almost feeling a little claustrophobic. It's like the memory nexus itself. It's like the blue wall is closing in around you, where you feel like, if I want to go delve more, yes, it used to be that I could just go get Delve Scarabs, but now you can't just farm your own Delve Scarabs. That's really tough to do. Well, you go, okay, Iron, well, there's the marketplace, just go buy them. Okay, but it's not nearly as easy to make a profit as Betrayal League, because you can't simply low-level Betrayal or low-level Delve anymore in order to flip currency to then go buy the Scarabs that you want to actually use. So there's a lot of different issues going on here. The too long don't care subject for this particular discussion, at least in my mind, is Scarabs are good. Nerfs to Scarab power level, good, but nerf to Scarab rate, drop rate, I personally think is bad. That's just my own personal take on it, but love to hear your own take on it down below. Another complaint about Syndicate is that Syndicate is actually much worse for hardcore players this league. So for people in HC, this is very much true. I have the funny story personally, I have yet to lose a character to Syndicate. Now that I say that, of course, why would I say that and jinx myself? But anyway, now I'm going to lose like my highest level character probably to this. But the reality is for me, the actual encounters themselves are not that bad. It's not the encounters, it's the bugs that are associated with the encounters. So Kia Eds leaves us this comment below. Kia Eds, I'm so sorry I've butchered your name. They just come out of nowhere and they hit like trucks. You can't skip them anymore. All you can do is hope to spot it before it bodies you and then start a new map. They're massively overtuned and hit harder than anything else at the map and monster level by a long way. Why is this core? Please give us a way to skip it as content or sort out the way it affects the game when they hit 2 to 3 times harder than the map boss and literally come out of nowhere. There is something very, very wrong with the integration. Now, on this particular point, I am going to both kind of agree and then disagree a little bit. So first off, yes, they are very, very scary. Again, I will just say that they lag. My entire system lags out when an intervention occurs. So on the one hand, because I've learned this, it's great because as soon as my freeze, my frames freeze or begin to drop frames, I simply kill the client. Right, just kill the client. Just get out of there, because you will in hardcore lose a character. Your character will simply stand there while they're taking damage from the intervention, and it doesn't matter if you've got HP recovery. It doesn't matter if you've got defensive layers. If you're just standing there and not leeching or using flasks or actually using any skills to kill stuff, you're eventually going to die. I did lose like a guy in Act 2 even this this league already, because I took a phone call for work and I forgot to close out or go to town. So like that will happen to you even if you're a high regen character in a low level zone. It doesn't matter. If you just stand there, eventually you're going to die. And this is very much true for the incredibly powerful encounters here. But the problem that I have with the Syndicate encounters is not their damage in and of themselves. I think their damage is actually great for Path of Exile. One of the things that I love about hardcore Path of Exile is the thrill that you get from trying to survive difficult encounters, or that moment of, oh man, should I portal? Should I portal? I've got no flasks. I need to portal back to town. Let's get back to town. Oh, okay. All right. Do I have flasks? What sort of encounter is this? Should I change up my flasks? Should I change up any of my items? Do I need to go with a more defensive shield for this particular setup? Do I need to swap, my chest piece? Do I need to swap my links? Should I be using a decoy totem for this particular setup? Should I just say, forget this particular encounter and forget this entire map? I can't run it. Let's just run on to the next thing. All of those are incredibly exciting and terrifying decisions that I'm choosing to participate in by playing hardcore. I'm not saying you need to balance or change anything about the hardcore encounters themselves. Kia Eds is saying, hey, let's tune it down a little bit. And maybe there's an argument to be made for that. I don't actually know the numbers on the intervention. Grinding Gear Games, of course, you guys do know the numbers on all of this. But just looking at it and experiencing it, I as a character am not dying to these things simply because of their damage. The thing that is risky is when our frames tank and when we can't actually interact with the server and interact with the game, and therefore something that does a little bit more damage is going to kill us quicker, and that makes me want to stop playing the game. And if I lose a hardcore character let's say I lose a character in the 80s, is that really that big of a deal for somebody that's a streamer who plays the game 24/7? Maybe not, but maybe to me, that's kind of a big deal. That's the guy that I've dumped all my currency into. That's the guy that I'm hoping to use to generate currency to generate other characters to go and do other content. So at least in terms of the hardcore perspective, it is much more of a bug issue, in my opinion, than it is of a damage issue. But I could be wrong. Let us know in the comments down below. The next problem, and unpopular opinion that has been going around, which that in and of itself has become a meme and a meta discussion point. But this was a good post by Dark Chronicle where he simply says, Syndicate going core was a mistake. He says, no loot, it's hard as bleep encounters, confusing, board of crap, and a complete lag fest. Why was this implemented? Betrayal was fine when I could completely ignore the mechanic, but now it's an overtuned, no loot giving POS. Excuse my language, but damn GGG, you had 3 months to nerf the encounters, and you still haven't done so. Is this what you really want in the game? Can we get some clarification on whether or not this is staying the way it is? And this is coming from a guy who's not playing hardcore, could just be playing softcore, which means death doesn't cost quite as much, but it's still annoying. And so I wanted to show this off and share this because this isn't just hardcore players that are bringing this up. This is people across the board. This was an excellent point by Kylet Spam. Kylet Get Spam, again, so sorry if I'm butchering your name. So this was a great point and counterpoint, which essentially leads to the argument that Betrayal is too big to fail. So let's jump into this. This was great point by him. It's too ingrained into the core mechanics, it being Betrayal, to be tossed aside. They tied the crafting system to Veil mods, so they have to stay in some form. Easier to keep existing content than to figure out a different way to get access to crafting mods. Betrayal could be fine if the following happened. First, you could accept the encounters by meeting Jun at the start of a map. I don't want to deal with all of their stuff or care about their loot. Is the map you're in way too hard, or even to bother attempting them? Ignore her, and the encounters don't spawn. A second thing, intelligence generated by the Syndicate should be buffed significantly. It was slow enough working towards a safe house in the main league of Betrayal, where encounters were in every single instance. Now you might go 10 maps without seeing anyone, and they still grant you +3 intelligence. Betrayal uniques can only be farmed by running leveling zones over and over, ZZZ. Okay. Great. Third point, doing Betrayal stuff in high tier content actually rewarded you in some way. This could be a potential fix for the point above. Maybe you scale it with the map tiers such that doing Syndicate stuff in a tier 15 nets 5 times the experience. I think this is a great suggestion because clearly one of the things that Grinding Gear Games had a problem with was the low-level repeatable content that we all enjoyed for the last 2 leagues. This was something that GGG has nerfed. They nerfed it in Delve to where fossils no longer drop for low-level delving, and they nerfed it in Betrayal where you can no longer simply spam a zone in order to farm safe houses or the mastermind. You can't do either of those things. So we had a great discussion. I want to say it's like the 3rd or 4th most viewed video that we've had here in the G3 community about low-level farming, and we had tons of comments. There were hundreds of you that came out and participated in that video and that discussion, both weighing the pros and the cons of low-level encounters. And Grinding Gear Games has solidly come out to say and to give their stamp of approval, or rather their stamp of veto, to say, look, low-level encounters shouldn't be this rewarding. Okay, so if that's the reality of the situation, that low-level encounters aren't going to be that rewarding, all right, fine, but could we maybe make it so that way interacting with the Betrayal and the Syndicate mechanism was more rewarding if we scaled up the encounters a little bit? That would be something that would be incredibly beneficial. The last thing that Spam leaves on this comment is ease up on the damage. These guys punch way above their level. They hit way harder than map bosses, and they're easier to die to than Shaper. And for what? +3 intelligence. Their damage could be halved, and it still might be too high. Again, I slightly disagree on that. Maybe that's just because I'm playing a very defensive character because I'm in hardcore. I don't think the damage on these guys is too high, but that is just me. It could be totally different. And again, I'm not even pushing red tier maps yet in hardcore. So it could be that, I'm just going to rip instantly to one of these guys in hardcore red tier maps, and then my entire opinion changes because of my experience. But I think these were some great points and some great suggestions and a great model, a great example of some ways to give feedback and critique on different things that you like or don't like about a particular league. All right, the next point right here. Synthesis feels like a massive, unrewarding, unexciting time sink. So transitioning from discussion about the Syndicate to actually now talking about Synthesis itself. Let's dive right in. This is Alxar. He says, I've been doing maps for a little while now, hoping they would get more rewarding and exciting. However, the opposite is happening. I'm dreading having to go to the memory nexus to spend 10 minutes trying to plan out an efficient path. It feels very awkward having platforms which can only face certain directions, yet we're limited to having only 10 on us at a time. Often I end up with 4 to 5 platforms that I have no current use for, and then in 5 maps, I have to go right back and repeat the process again. On top of that, even when I spend time creating and running through 6 to 7 platform link, it feels wholly unrewarding. Fractured items are so RNG based and space consuming that I find myself just leaving 90% of them on the ground. Synthesized fractured items themselves have been super underwhelming. Often I end up with items that just have strictly worse implicits. I can't imagine ever getting a scepter or wand or even a shield that has a better implicit than its default. Having no control over the base item other than its class is just another layer of RNG. The one exciting implicit I got was 15% increased ES to a chest, an evasion-based chest. How exciting. Okay, so he lays out a couple of suggestions down below. Suggestions: more control over how we place platforms, allow us to rotate platforms, loosen restrictions on how platforms can be placed. Path planning takes too long, and a number of platforms we can carry is too limited. Better control over the RNG of fractured synthesized items. Implicits have been wholly awful, and on top of that, you have to hope for a good base. Thirdly, more rewarding loot. Special platforms are very underwhelming. Normal platforms are equally underwhelming. Fourth, let us place platforms without actually having to run along the path, wasting charges to do so. We should be able to plan and place a path from the Nexus and run it only when the path is ready. This is a huge waste of time. Fifthly, and finally, collapsing memory mechanics are frustrating. The randomness of how quickly they close and the random seeming directions in which they close makes it very tough at times to navigate them. I had heard that memories were supposed to be less frustrating than the timed incursions, but that is definitely not the case. All right, so what are your opinions on this? This is a great overview of this particular user's experience. I'm not necessarily saying that this is a great critique or that this is a great example that he's hitting everything right. I'm simply saying this is a great write-up. He's not attacking or making anything personal against GGG. There's no slurs going on here attacking GGG or persons as a company or individuals that are actually working on this. This is somebody who's saying, look, I really hope that we can improve this, and here are ways of going about improving this, which is what we all should be doing as we give feedback on synthesis. Now, this isn't just something that Reddit is complaining about or making suggestions about. This is something that's also going on the forums. So here's somebody, Zilla, has said, no amount of white knighting will change my mind. Synthesis League sucks. Just killed tier 9 Elder with my starter build and decided that's where I'm stopping this league. I dealt with the horrible Betrayal BS that the majority of the community didn't want in Core. Dealt with the horrible lag and freezes. League is simply unrewarding. Even in Betrayal, you could get equipment while leveling. That would help or something. League mechanic is so poorly implemented. It's as if nobody at GGG actually playtested it. Can't hold enough memories. Items are despawned, glitchy. Every time I see Cavis, I just run past him within the first week of the league. All right, now this is an example, a counterexample of somebody that's just going out of their way to lambast GGG quite a bit. He then says he doesn't think that they even take the time to particularly playtest things. I will simply say this to those of you who share this opinion that GGG doesn't playtest things. Grinding Gear Games, and I am in no way affiliated, paid by, or supported by Grinding Gear Games. I've got no dog in this fight other than the fact that I love playing Path of Exile. Grinding Gear Games has a staff of a little over 100 people. 100 people, little over that. There are millions of us, right, in terms of our characters and our accounts that are playing Path of Exile on nearly a daily basis, certainly on a monthly basis. There are hundreds of thousands of us that are playing this game. There is no way, no possible way, that this game can be playtested such that all of the bugs would be fixed internally. Let's just admit that from the get-go, that not all of the bugs can be fixed, right? If we all can agree on that not all of the bugs can be fixed, now it becomes an issue of negotiating which bugs can be fixed internally and which bugs are only going to come out when there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of users that are actually interacting with the platform, right? So I understand that not all of us are familiar with coding and not all of us are familiar with project management. That's totally fine. I'm not particularly familiar with server management, so I don't have any kind of level of expertise there. I just understand that it's difficult and it's complex, and the reality is that each of us have got vastly different specs on our machines, and so the more different players there are using a particular piece of software, the more chances there are to discover bugs as it interacts with particular machines and with particular other versions of software. So that's a good thing. So a lot of the bugs that do occur inside leagues, and this happens every single league, have to occur when the players actually play the game. And this isn't unique to Path of Exile. This happens in every game. New patches come out. There's new game-breaking stuff, whether it's the most played game in the market, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's League of Legends, whether it's Overwatch, whether it's Dota, whether it's Apex Legends. It doesn't matter what it is. The only way to find game-breaking bugs is when you've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people testing it out on hundreds of thousands of different configurations. That's the only way to do it. So lambasting GGG is not the way to go about critiquing and offering suggestions moving forward. Now, what is valid right here in this post, and I think this is great, is the experience and the frustration that we can see from this particular player. This is a player who clearly wants to play the game, clearly is emotionally invested in the game, because when they're bumping up against a challenge in the game that they can't overcome, which is these lags, these freezes, and these various bugs that they're encountering, it's really frustrating to them. People don't get frustrated about stuff that they don't care about, right? When people are frustrated in the Path of Exile community, the way how we show that frustration is really important, because we don't want to hurt the people that are working on the game that we love. But at the same time, it is totally appropriate to show our frustration, to say this thing is frustrating us because we can't interact with the game that we want to be playing in the way that we'd like to be playing it. There are ways to improve this, but this is very frustrating. And sometimes being frustrated is the best way to express that you're being frustrated about something. So let's continue on. This is a post by Lucy713, who asked the question, does this league excite you even a little bit? They say, I decided to quit this league before I started wasting my time on something that clearly is not going to be worth it. Do note, I quit before even reaching yellow maps. Betrayal encounters were god-awful. The lag issues, fortification, and intervention made the game unplayable at times because of freezes and tricky deaths. As far as my opinion goes, Betrayal itself should never have gone core in the first place, and I could tell that the majority of players, at least on forums, did not like this move from GGG one bit. One note there, people who are pushing and throwing numbers out there, it's really, really tough to critique somebody when they're saying, hey, look, this is the majority of opinions that I've heard. It's really, really tough, because without the data to back up those claims, like without actually taking a scientific poll and polling people, it's really tough to have that data. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why on our G3 community page, I actually like to throw out those polls. So those of you who are subscribers, thanks so much for hanging out and for participating in those polls, because that is at least one way that we can engage and gauge community reaction to something, is to actually put up a poll and say, hey, which one of these opinions do you most align yourself with? That's actually some data to interact with, rather than just saying, well, I was scrolling through the forums and this is the majority of opinions that I saw. Well, maybe so, but maybe you were just looking at the wrong time. Maybe the particular subsection of the forum you were looking through was the wrong subsection for feedback. there's lots of factors that can go into that can skew somebody's opinion on the voices and on the input that's actually going out there. So before we start throwing mud and slings and taking stats and using stats against one another, let's actually poll and get some actual opinions and some numbers out there before we start referencing that as a citation point for yay or nay on a particular argument. Okay, his second point. As far as this league goes, it's boring, unrewarding, and quite stale. I started doing Canvas early on, and when I saw Memory Nexus, limited space for pieces, and every time you have to do one, you have to enter the instance from beginning and are not yet able to simply warp up to the memory you want to do, I still had an open mind and gave it a shot when I reached maps, but after I saw this league is a complete waste of time and it's actually worse than Betrayal League, which I did not think was possible, to be honest. I'd like to read some other opinions from other players, and if they like it, I'd like to ask why. The only and single possible saving grace from this league is that you can chaos spam synthesis mods and not alter them. Other than that, this is my own respectable opinion. Avoid this league entirely. That's perfectly fine, right? As a suggestion to say, you know what, I don't enjoy this league personally. I'm going to wait out until the next league. I would like to 100% back all of you who are feeling that expression of frustration that just goes, you know what, this is too frustrating for me. I want to validate you. Like, I want to absolutely empower you to say, go play another game. Go play another game. This is your hobby time. This is you doing whatever you want to do with the time that you have to spend. Like, go do that. Don't let somebody else, strong arm you and convince you, oh no, synthesis is really good and you should really tough it out and this is character building and it's good for you as a human being to be involved in Synthesis League. And if something frustrates you in a video game, you ought to stick it out, champ, because otherwise you're a quitter. Like, no! If a video game is frustrating to you, it's boring to you, it's not fulfilling your entertainment desires while you're interacting with it, then leave. And guess what? Chris Wilson, the lead developer of Grinding Gear Games, has said that in the past. If you don't like a particular mechanic or a particular league, the best feedback you can give to Grinding Gear Games is not to purchase a supporter pack and not to play, because guess what, that's direct feedback to them that they've got less players playing and they've got less income coming in through supporter packs, and so they need to change what it is that they're doing. So I want to commend Lucy and again these other posts that are people who are frustrating with the league mechanic, and I want to commend you if that's your opinion as well. That's fine if that's your opinion. There's actually actions you can take to help change Grinding Gear Games, and they've done this in the past. My personal opinion is that since 3.0 has come out, a lot of these more complex endgame systems are a result of 2.5 years of people complaining that there needs to be more endgame in Path of Exile. They did that, they listened, and after 3.0, they've done nothing but give us expanded endgame options. That's what every single league has done. It's been improvement of the story and expanded endgame options. Go back and tweak the story a little bit, expanded endgame options. Don't touch the story at all, expanded endgame options. That's been every single league since 3.0 has come out. GGG does listen to their fan base. They do listen to their communities. So if you've got this opinion or a similar opinion where you're not excited about this league, that's okay. Simply take a step back, say I'm not going to participate in this league, and maybe articulate why it is that you're not going to participate in this league, so that way hopefully future leagues can be designed with your feedback in mind. Okay, this is the last one. This is a bit sarcastic, our last discussion point and our last piece of feedback. This league is so unrewarding, or should I channel Kermit? This league is so unrewarding, Iron. So Anyx says, POE forum be like, this league is the most unrewarding league ever made. Reddit be like, here is my 1k ES regalia and 480 ES energy shield helmet with 9 mind cold resist to enemies 1 week into the league. So which one is it, right? Which one do you want? It's a valid opinion. I think this is a valid opinion. Reflin responded to this and he said, let me put on my tinfoil hat and conspiracy theorist overcoat. It could be that they are testing things. People keep saying they want infinite delve, but GGG says if you get it, rewards would have to be nerfed. Perhaps these and the drops associated with this particular league we could expect from unlimited delving, and GGG is just gauging their player reaction. So all right, so that's a bunch of different discussion topics for us to weigh in on. I'm looking forward to seeing and interacting with all of you in the comments down below what your opinions are. What are your opinions about Syndicate and now that it's core? What are your opinions about synthesis and the way how it's being implemented, whether that's the memory nexus, whether that's the individual memories that you're interacting with? A lot of folks I'm not going to put a statistical number on it because I haven't taken the data. I am going to say a lot of folks that I've read and talked to and interacted with really enjoy that Cavis essentially gives you more XP per zone. That's a great thing. A lot of people are enjoying that. My own final verdict is twofold, and it's really simple. It's first off, if you say, oh, I hate synthesis, my suggestion to you is don't play it. Don't play it. So if you truly hate it, don't play it, and that's some of the best feedback that you can give to GGG. Secondly, for my second final verdict, if you enjoy synthesis in any way and you want to see it improve, then give your suggestions and your critiques. We're 1 week into the league. GGG is looking at every single piece of feedback right now. They do a great job of that. They're gauging different forum threads, different Reddit threads, different streams, different YouTube channels, different reactions, different opinions that are out there. Any player metric that they can gauge, player retention, the number of players who are playing, player longevity, the play sessions that players are playing through, the number of interactions that players are having inside the memory nexus, the number of interactions that players are having with other league mechanics outside of the memory nexus. All of this stuff are metrics that GGG is looking at to say, hey, is this a successful league mechanic, and should we do more stuff like this? So if you don't enjoy it, don't play it. If you do enjoy it, give the feedback that you essentially would want GGG to hear. Imagine yourself when you're writing or typing or speaking about changing a league mechanic or giving feedback to Grinding Gear Games. Imagine if the team was right there with you in the room and you could say, hey guys, this is how I would do it. Or, hey team, this is how I think Path of Exile needs to move forward in the future. That's a great approach to giving feedback, is kind of the presentation approach. If you had everybody in the room just to mentally think of that, it's a great way to think about the other people on the other end of the conversation that you're having as you are offering critiques and suggestions. So for myself, I personally am enjoying Synthesis League. I'm enjoying hardcore Synthesis League. I like that the walls close in around me. I like that it's scary. I like that Syndicate is around. I do think that Scarabs should be targetable in terms of their farming. I think either the rate of Scarabs need to go up or the power level of Scarabs need to go up. But if they've both simply gone down, then they just feel bad. And then also in terms of synthesis itself, I think that the synthesized mechanics and the synthesized items are amazing. I have shared several of the different items that people have already started to craft and create inside the G3 community page, and I will continue to do so because there is absolutely some ridiculous items that are now craftable with synthesis. And I am looking forward to both crafting my own amazing synthesis items, as well as looking forward to seeing all of the different creations that you guys all have and that we as a Path of Exile community have together, because I think this is truly a wonderful end game and crafter's heaven as a particular league mechanic. I don't think that there has been a better, more expansive league change and league crafting mechanic than what we've got now. I think synthesis, in terms of its power level, is right up there with Eternal Orbs. Those of you that don't know what Eternal Orbs are, they essentially allowed you to create a copy of an item before you then crafted on it further. So imagine if you had an item that you are ready to craft, whether that's Mastercraft or whether that's Exalted Slam, or change in any way, shape, or form. Maybe you were going to use an annulment to take something off to then change later. You could use an Eternal Orb to create a copy of the item, and then if the crafting session went bad, you could go back to the copy of the item. It wasn't a duplicate of the item, it wasn't a mirror of Calandra, but it was similar to where you essentially had a save state of the item while you were crafting. I personally think that the level of crafting that we are now at is once again at that level of power. I think synthesized crafting is ridiculous in terms of its power level and abilities for players that want to take the time to dive into it. It is quite a bit of a headache and quite frustrating to jump into and to learn about, but we're only 1 week into the league, so hopefully we'll be able to learn more. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. You can leave us your comments down below, and I hope today is the day that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you in Synthesis League.